Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Fantasy First. And today we're going to start talking about rankings because it's that time of the summer, training camp's on the horizon, and what better time to start talking about quarterback rankings? So here we go with the number one quarterback for the 2015 fantasy football season. So at the top of my list for the 2015 fantasy football season, I've got Andrew Luck. I like Aaron Rodgers, and he is my number two because that's pretty obvious. But Andrew Luck threw 40 touchdowns, 16 picks last year. But again, you have Andre Johnson now. Last year there was kind of a rotating carousel at X receiver. It was Reggie Wayne, it was Dante Moncrief. So now I like T.Y. Hilton shifting back to that field stretch type of role. You've got Andre Johnson as that possession receiver. And at 33 years old, I still believe he can ball. I look at the Colts schedule. Pittsburgh, Denver, New England, okay? Twice against Jacksonville, twice against Tennessee, twice against Houston, okay? And to top that, they play the NFC South. So Carolina, Atlanta, the Saints, the Buccaneers. So I think there's a lot of fantasy potential here for Andrew Luck. And you know you're going to get rushing yards. And that's always a nice added bonus from Andrew. So I can potentially see a 4,500 plus, potentially 45 touchdown season from Andrew Luck. And that's why he's my number one quarterback entering the year. At number two, Aaron Rodgers, 39-5. That's ridiculous. Okay? He didn't throw a pick at home. That's unheard of. The efficiency is off the charts. There's nobody in the business better than Aaron Rodgers in terms of protecting the football at the quarterback position. Okay? I like the playoff matchups. You talk about Dallas week 14, at Oakland week 15, Arizona week 16. Okay? So I think there's a lot of potential there if you want to invest an early round pick in a quarterback, even though I advise against it. As you'll see by some of the signal callers at the bottom of this list. But Aaron Rodgers is my locked-in number two guy to start the 2015 NFL season. At number three, things change here. Usually you see a Peyton, a Drew, a Tom. I'm going with Russell Wilson. Now, Russell Wilson has a top target now. We all know about the Jimmy Graham trade, okay? Yes, they lost Max Unger. Yes, they lost a 2015 first-round pick. But in return, they got a stud playmaker who's a matchup nightmare in between the hashes. Okay, we know about Russell's running ability. 849 yards, 6 scores. I mean, that was top 16 in the league. This guy was better than some starting running backs in the NFL. Now, I don't expect him to duplicate that 849-yard season, but I think it's a safe assumption that his floor will be about 600 to 650 rushing yards. That's a lot of points. So when I look at Russell Wilson being the most dynamic weapon at quarterback in terms of what he could do with his arms and his legs, you bring in Jimmy Graham. We'll see if Chris Matthews can emerge, which we saw he was in the Super Bowl. Can Paul Richardson come back from tearing his ACL? They've got quietly a solid receiving core there in Seattle. So I'm predicting a 3,800 passing yards, 700 rushing yard season with about 28 total touchdowns from Russell Wilson. Now, at number four, good old Peyton Manning shows back up on the list. Now, he had a stud season in 2014, posting 39 touchdowns. From weeks 1 through 13, he was a stud, but down the stretch at the end of the season, he faltered a bit. I expect that to change with Gary Kubiak, his run zone scheme that he employs. You've got C.J. Anderson, which in my opinion is a 3-down back. You know, you'll have Hillman and Ball. We'll sprinkle in. They'll get their touches. But, you know, I like what Kubiak's plan is to preserve Manning, become a more balanced attack so that, you know, when you're going into your playoff weeks, Manning should be fresh still at that point in the year. Now, they lost Ryan Clady. That's a bit of a concern, but we know how quickly Peyton gets the ball out of his hands. So that should help an ailing offensive line that also lost Orlando Franklin in the offseason. I'm expecting about 4,400 passing yards from Peyton Manning and 35 scores. Number 5 on my list, Cam Newton. Cam Newton was injured for a lot of the year last year. We know about the car accident. We know about the ankle surgery that he sustained, that he needed to fix going into the 2014 season. That looks to change this year. He seems healthy. And the stats that he put up in an injury-plagued year are pretty good. He rushed for over 600 yards. So, again, you have that value there in terms of rushing yards, which are so precious at the quarterback position. I expect Kelvin Benjamin to take a leap forward in his second year. They brought back Ted Ginn Jr., who can stretch the field. And they drafted Devin Funchess out of Michigan, who's a 6'7", tight end, sort of wide receiver hybrid. Still unsure where he's going to play. But, when you talk about a red zone target, it's hard to not be able to connect with a guy who's 6'7" tall who can just go up there and bear snag it. And, of course, you've got 30-year-old Greg Olsen. So the targets, while not amazing, you don't have a Dez, you don't have a Demarius or a Julio, but I'm expecting Cam to get over that 20-touchdown throwing mark this year, and I expect another 6 to 8 scores on the ground. So I like Cam, and again, you're going up against the AFC South, the NFC South. You've got a game with the Packers. So I like Cam's schedule, and he's my locked-in choice for my number 5 quarterback. Okay, so the number 6 quarterback on my list is Falcons quarterback Matt Ryan. I look at his schedule, and the first thing that I notice is every game is pretty much in a dome or in a nice weather situation. The only arguable not nice weather situation is Washington, and that's in week 5, so that'll be a nice crisp fall weather game for Matt Ryan. But look at his early schedule. At New York in week 2, in, the September, it'll still be beautiful, okay? At Dallas week 3. Do I have to go over the AFC South teams whose weather remains consistent as the year goes on? All the dome games he plays in, as well as all the games at the Georgia Dome. I look at his outside talent. Do I really need to introduce Julio Jones? We know what this man's capable of. If you're not sure who he is, go back and watch the Monday Night Football game versus Green Bay last year. That'll tell you all you need to know. Okay, Roddy White, yes, 33 years old, still a solid, possession guy. Okay, so I still like the outside talent. I like Kyle Shanahan's down-the-field vertical passing game that will siphon targets to Julio Jones. Just a safe target at number 6 here. I like his upside a bit better than Drew Brees this year. But again, anything's possible, and with Ryan and his weapons, I have him pegged at number 6. At number 7 is the aforementioned Drew Brees. Drew Brees has pretty much been a consistency king since he's arrived in New Orleans. I believe over the past 4 seasons, he's averaged over 5,000 passing yards, pretty close to 40 touchdowns. Now, I expect that to take a little bit of a dip anytime you lose Jimmy Graham, anytime you lose Kenny Stills. Your production's going to drop off a little bit. Excuse me. We saw them trade for Max Unger. We saw them re-sign Mark Ingram. We saw them sign C.J. Spiller. So clearly the Saints are looking to evolve to a more balanced attack in terms of running and passing. I like the acquisition of C.J. Spiller for Drew Brees. Who knows? Maybe some of those screens will get taken to the house, and that'll help Drew Brees' value. Again, I don't think Brees is the first, second, or even third round pick he's been, but end of the 4th round, middle of the end of the 4th round, if I've got a top flight wideout and 2 stud running backs or 2 flight wideouts and a stud back, yeah, I'll take a chance on Drew Brees because I know that he's a consistency king. Again, the schedule, for just like all these other AFC South quarterbacks, you're playing the AFC South, you're playing the NFC East, you're playing the AFC South, and I really like that schedule for NFC South quarterbacks this year. Moving on to number 8, the man who was suspended for Deflategate and we're still waiting, Tom Brady. Now, he's going to miss at most 4 games. I expect that suspension to get reduced to 3. I personally think the league offices and the fans want to see the Cowboys versus the Patriots at full strength, so I do believe they're going to tack off 1 game, but we'll see. But again, Brady's about as consistent as they come. You've got Gronk. You've got nice little side weapons with Julian Edelman and Danny Amendola running short routes and making yards happen after the catch. I believe Brady threw for 31 scores. I'm going with the consistency of Brady. I'm going to run with the sports narrative here that, he's got a chip on his shoulder, and, he's going to show the league that, I don't need a deflated ball to get it done. Also, I look at the defensive departures. You lost Brandon Browner. You lost Darrelle Revis. You lost Vince Wilfork. Okay? Teams are going to be able to score a little bit more easier on the Patriots, and I think that the Patriots and Bill Belichick are going to have to rely on the arm of Tom Brady. So I look for that offense to have to score more points to win games. The running back situation is basically a carousel every game. It's game plan dependent. But the one constant rock is Tom Brady. And anytime you're throwing a Gronk, who pretty much goes like this and catches touchdown passes, you've got a good situation. So my number 8 quarterback is Tom Brady. Moving to number 9, Big Ben Roethlisberger. He tied with Drew Brees for the league lead in passing yards, which is something he's never done in his career. He surpassed 30 touchdowns. He had career highs in yards, completion percentage, and he tied his career high in touchdowns. So what that tells me is his outside talent is ridiculous. Okay, we've got potentially at most 3 games with no Le'Veon Bell. So we know the game plan is going to be get the ball to Antonio Brown, whether it's down the field, whether we're throwing quick screens and we're letting him do what he does after the catch. You have him emerging Martavis Bryant, who, for a 6'4" guy, he can fly. He can seriously fly. I drafted him in my Dynasty League, and I'm really happy about that. They used the 3rd round investment on Sammy Coates. Now we know that the hands are an issue, but maybe he comes down on 4 receiver sets. So Ben pretty much has the best arsenal of talent at the receiver positions that he's ever had in his career. Not to mention, you basically have got a running back who's running wide receiver routes. I mean, this kid can really run some serious routes, and he has great natural hands. So I really like what Big Ben has, and I like the playoff matchups a little bit. Cincinnati, Denver, Baltimore. Baltimore, he put up 6 touchdowns in Baltimore. So I'm not worried about that matchup. If anything, that rivalry might even help Ben play better. So we'll see. So as of right now, I've got Ben Roethlisberger as my number 9 quarterback. And at number 10, the Ole Miss product, drafted number 1 in 2004, Eli Manning. Eli Manning, I take a look at his numbers last year. In the month of December, the Giants had over 30 points per game. Okay, so he really started to catch fire in that Ben McAdoo West Coast system that he, took from Green Bay. I look at the numbers, 30 touchdowns. That's pretty good for Eli. Eli's usually in that high 20s range. Okay, his interceptions went down. And you have Odell Beckham to throw to, who's a freak. Thank you very much. I mean, he's a freak. I am a little worried about Victor Cruz's health. I think that Manning's ceiling is a little bit tied to Victor Cruz because I'm still unsure about Ruben Randle. He seems to not be in sync with Eli all the time. So when I look at the receiving talent, if Odell can beat double coverage consistently because teams are going to game plan against him, can Victor Cruz come back healthy, and can Ruben Randle put it all together? But in that West Coast system, I like Eli Manning as a top 10 quarterback. He had over 600 attempts last year, so the volume will be there. Also, sneakily, you've got Shane Vereen coming out of the backfield now on 3rd down catching passes. That's going to help your quarterback. Now, I am a little worried about this offensive line. Will Beatty won't be coming back until October, November. So Eric Flowers will probably be starting at left tackle. So that's the one concern that I have. But I believe playing that NFC East, playing that NFC South, I like Eli as a solid mid-range quarterback 1. I still want to have a backup because when the Giants play the Jets with Revis and Cromartie, I'll be a little worried. When the Giants go to play Buffalo week 4, I'm going to be a little bit worried with that pass rush, so I might want to have another guy. But if I'm taking Eli in round 8, round 9, I'm really happy about that. High stakes sports debates.